Are you ready?
Yep. So I would like to reach back through time and hug poor old Captain Robert Fitzroy the Beagle and tell him everything's going to be okay, even though I know that it's not. Now, he was the bloke who took Darwin around the world and allowed him to later write The Origin of Species with the stuff that he observed. But he was much more than that. He was an incredible sailor, the greatest sea captain of his age. He was an amazing scientist, despite having almost no formal scientific training, and he was a really good man. He believed that he could make a difference by doing the right thing, and it was this desire to do the right thing that often got him in trouble and scuppered him in the end. He was Darwin's captain. He mapped the world. His maps were so good that they were used up until recently, only superseded by aerial photography. Spent his own fortune for the public good. He was the first governor of New Zealand, and he invented weather forecasting. Someone didn't invent it, it was him. That's amazing. But despite all this, he's been kind of cast aside by history and just turned into a footnote of basically he was Darwin's captain and he went a bit mad at the end. So I would like to, this quote from Bryson is just so I'm trying to correct things one Bettakultcha presentation at a time. So he was very aristocratic. He was the fourth grandson of Charles II. He was born into a rich family. He had a fortune of, I think, £6,000, which is the equivalent of several hundred grand today. So he could have done nothing for his whole life, but he didn't. He put all his energy and all his money into the public good. He was bankrupt by the time he died. He was the first person ever to get full marks in whatever the naval exam is that they ever wanted to do at the end. And he became captain of the Beagle at just 23. He was an incredible captain. He effected daring rescues. He went off to South America. He mapped the world. And he introduced some new rules, including halving the rum ration. Imagine being 23 and telling all the sailors that they could only have half the rum. Also, there used to be the starboard side and the larboard side. And he said, I know, why do we not have two sides that rhyme so that when we're in a storm we know which way to go? So he changed it to port, which is a really good idea, I think you'll agree. When he went on the second voyage, he needed a companion because being a sea captain is a very lonely business. The previous sea captain had committed suicide, and he wanted to take someone with him because he couldn't talk to all the sailors. He needed a gentleman he could talk to. Charles Darwin was 22 at the time, and off he went. This was where they went. It took them 5 years. You'll notice they go to Bahia twice because Fitzroy wanted to go back and check some measurements. And they got on incredibly well. They only found out when they came back, and it started when Darwin didn't acknowledge the Beagle's crew for all their kindnesses and specimen collecting and stuff they did when they wrote up the narrative. Now Fitzroy's volume in this narrative is incredibly earnest, very sailory, and quite frankly incredibly dull. Darwin's, on the other hand, is one of the most reprinted and most read travelogues of all time. Fitzroy found this very difficult to take. He went into a 2-year depression. He was undiagnosed manic depressive because no one knew what that was back then. And he was being outshone by this, at that time, far less accomplished younger man. So he tried something completely different. He became governor of New Zealand. He was sent over there by the government after the Wairau massacre. And it was an awful time to be anywhere, basically, because the English would come along, take the land and kill you, and that's what everybody did. So he got there, and he tried a very new thing, which no one had done before him, and people didn't do for many years afterwards, which was actually try to be fair to the native tribes and give them back their land when it was stolen from them by the white man being really evil and all that kind of stuff. Now, this went down very badly. He was recalled in disgrace after 2 years and replaced by George Grey, who was given more money and a bigger army. And George Grey came up with the brilliant idea of converting the Maori to Christianity and then slaughtering them when they prayed on a Sunday in their churches without their weapons, for which, of course, he was knighted, because that's exactly the kind of thing the British government wanted Fitzroy to do all along. So, Fitzroy came back. He'd always been interested in weather. Appearing on your screen now are some lovely pictures by him, which look like photographs, but they're just drawings. And he founded what we now know as the Met Office in 1854, because he'd invented this thing called the Fitzroy barometer, which allowed him to predict with a certain degree of accuracy when there would be a storm. So what would happen would be the shipping fleets would stay in the port when Fitzroy said there would be a storm, and this made the fishermen very happy, because at that time, if you got caught in a massive storm, you probably would die. However, it made the fishing fleet owners very angry because they lost money when their ships were in the dock. So they put pressure on the Times to stop publishing the weather forecast, pressure on the Met Office, they ridiculed Fitzroy, and eventually it worked. And the Met Office was shut down, Fitzroy was sacked, the Times stopped printing the weather forecasts. A couple of years later, they started printing them again, the Met Office reopened, and it saved literally thousands of lives thereafter. But that was too late for poor old Fitzroy. And this is a really whistle-stop tour, but basically throughout his life, he tried to do the right thing, he tried to help, and life just kicked him in the nuts again and again and again, until he couldn't take it anymore. And one morning in 1865, he woke up, he kissed his wife on the cheek, he said, I love you, he locked himself in the bathroom, and he slit his own throat. And I think this is really sad, and that he should be remembered as someone who did amazing things, rather than just some bloke who took Darwin around the world. So I would want to reach back through history. I would like to say to him, you did really well, the whole weather thing works out really well. I've even got like an app on my phone, which is amazing. If only you'd stuck around for a couple of years, you could have seen what happened. Well done, Robert, you did really well. If you want to know more about him, I recommend that novel or that biography. He's a wonderful bloke. Thanks for listening very much.
Thank you.